It starts with a book. Well, a notebook. A big one, a small one, a brand new one from the shop, or one you've had for years. It used to be your philosophy book at school. It doesn't matter. A notebook is to words what a cake is to icing, merely a conduit. In 2016, I found all these videos. They talked about the practice of journaling, getting up every morning to write down your thoughts. I liked the repetition of it, the idea of filling up each page with thick paragraphs of cramped writing. It itched my brain. I loved those videos. There were so many words.
It's really fun, being
I was really particular about it at first. I drew the headings really good, did my margins straight. I wrote like somebody was going to read it. I began to write at the same time I began to film. I made videos for my friends. I wrote about our day in my journal. I felt a responsibility towards capturing it all. I had yet to discover the complete irony of filtering your confessions. I edited my thoughts in my mind before they made it to the page. Journaling, after all, was a performance. It was pretty to look at for people now, and it would be pretty to read for my great-granddaughter 100 years from now. Despite the qualms, journaling became a state of respite. In the indefinite moments when I didn't know which way was up, I turned to my pages. Over the years, journaling has become an important tool for me, both in the analysis of myself and the complete opposite of this. It was where I began learning how not to take things too seriously. So the first thing I do when I start a journal is obviously to pick a notebook. I have a stack of random notebooks in my cupboard and I just choose whichever one is on top. This is exciting to me because I don't know what's next and it makes me motivated to write and see which one I'm going to get next. I feel silly admitting that, but there you go. It's also good because I haven't bought a journal for several years because I have a lot just in my cupboard, and often for birthdays or Christmas my friends will get me journals, so I've got a good stash to work through. And yeah, I'll just pick a random one. I prefer ones that are snark sized, or even at the moment I'm trying smaller than snark sized, and that's been fine, no qualms there. I don't really have a preference outside of that. I write with fountain pens, but even if the paper isn't like top quality, I don't really notice a difference. I'm not too particular about it. I do like Leutsch terms. I'll show you some of the Leutsch terms that I've written in. So I've only written in 2, but both have been a really good experience. This was the first one that I wrote in, and I decorated the back. It got thick, and because the Leutsch terms, I got the dot grid, it's quite small, so I got to write a lot in it, and it took quite a few months to fill up, and yeah, it was a good experience. And it was the same for this one, which is a little bit thicker. I decorated this one as well. I do enjoy the Leutsch terms because they do take me longer to fill out, and I feel like I fully connect with the journal more so than the others because I am in them for such a long time, which I've had with other notebooks as well, but I just find specifically the Leutsch terms, they do that. When I start a journal, I usually name my journals, but I really rarely know what I'm going to name my journal until the very end, so I leave some space at the start for that. I normally skip the first few pages, and then inside of like the 3rd or the 4th page I write down 3 quotes that are relevant to me at the time of starting the journal. So this can be things from like movies I've seen recently, books I'm reading, songs I'm listening to. If I were to start a journal right this very second, the quotes that I would include are as follows. You can't wake up if you don't fall asleep. I watched Asteroid City last night and I really enjoyed it. They're all just chapters in the end, some we receive and some we send, and some are just written really badly. Quote from a Tom Rosenthal song that I absolutely love, and I was having a conversation about it with someone the other day. One of you guys actually, hello. And then another song quote from Hayley Hendrix, The Brink of My Existence essentially is a comedy. It's from my favourite song of hers, Shalala, and it's very good and you should listen to it. And then I'm pretty much good to go. I don't really number my pages. I might do if I'm like 3/4 of the way through a journal and I want to know how much I have left, but for the most part I don't do that. I used to write at the end of my journal goals, and then I wouldn't look at them until I finished the journal. I'd most often forget what they were, and then I'd write down if I completed them. But I just sort of got like, yeah, I didn't really go with that anymore, so I've stopped doing that. I'm considering replacing that habit with something. I remember, I think Overall Adventures did something where she wrote in like happy memories at the end of the journal to look back on, and I thought, that sounds cool. So I'm thinking about doing that. Sometimes I have a system for how I do my headings in my journal, but most of the time I end up changing it halfway through. But for the most part, I just like to grab a texter or something and write the date. I just like that physical breakup between the actual writing and the headings so that I know which days are which. I like to keep them simple just so that if I'm on the go, I don't have to worry about doing anything too tricky. It's also good because I don't want anything to get in the way of my writing. I just want it to be done so then I can begin writing, sort of remove that friction in getting started. Sometimes though, I might do my headings ahead of time if I'm going out and I know that I'm going to be journaling that day, or sometimes in the evenings if I want to write in the mornings and make myself write, I will write the heading beforehand in the evenings because it will really bother me if I don't then go and write and I just have the heading of a day that's blank. So that's a good tip. Beneath the date in my journals, I will write the time, my location, and then whatever song is currently playing or what is stuck in my head. I like to know where I am and what time it is because it just provides a lot of context for the entry at the time, which in journals that I've had beforehand that I didn't do, and I found it hard to sort of place where I was and what I was doing. And then the songs are the good bit because sometimes they're like really nice pretty songs, and then other times, say if I am out in public or I've like watched a YouTube video, I have the most random song in my head and it doesn't make any sense at all. I'm currently writing with my Lamy Safari in, I think it's medium. Yeah, can you see that? Hang on. That's not gonna work. I have a Preppy in bold and I do really like it, but it's just a little bit too thick. So I find the medium works well because with the fine, my hands get really cramped and I struggle. And then this is the ink I'm currently writing with. It's Iroshizuku Sakushi. My brother got it for me for Christmas and I really like it. I'm not too particular about changing inks halfway through a journal as long as they're inks that I like. I prefer them in like muted sort of earthy tones, not anything too bright. These are my other favourite inks at the moment that I write in. It's Iroshizuku Shinryoku. This is the ink that I've had for the longest, I think. I'm just going to show you. I'm going off track here, but she's pretty empty. I'm getting through it. So then my other favourite inks are both Robert Oster. I really like Melbourne Tram Green. This was the limited edition ink from the Melbourne Pen Show last year and I'm obsessed with this. I really don't want to use it because I like it so much. And I also have Thunderstorm, which is really good as well. It's a really nice dark blue, but also kind of grey. It's really nice. And then I start writing, which if I haven't written for a few days, I find quite difficult. It is quite jarring to just start writing down your thoughts, and especially if you're new to it as well, it's quite difficult at first. And even now, I've been journaling for maybe 8 years and I still find it difficult to completely let go and just write. But I find if I give myself like maybe a certain amount of pages to write, or say I'll only write for 15 minutes, it sort of loosens me up, takes the pressure off, and I'm able to sort of get into the flow again. And the flow state of journaling is probably my favourite part about it and why I do it. I really enjoy it. Just when my pen can barely keep up with my thoughts and I feel like I'm really on the brink of discovering something about myself or learning something. Yeah, really working through things that I'm going through. But yeah, when I'm rusty with my writing, when I haven't written for a while, I tend to just recap stuff that's happened in my day. There's nothing wrong with this. I think this was really cool. I've seen a lot of really artistic journals where people have sort of like time capsules of their day and they make it look really pretty. This doesn't really work for me because I find recapping everything quite draining almost. I feel like it is more of a job than an activity that I'm going to enjoy. If I just focus on recapping my day, I do tend to get burnt out more quickly and I'm less likely to journal, especially since if I'm recapping my day, I sort of feel like I'm writing for somebody else, like I'm writing for someone in the future to read my journal about what my life was like at this time, which again is really cool, but it's not really the sort of thing that means journaling is a tool for me right now, which at this point in my life is something that I value more. Instead, I sort of recap my day in a way that how do I say this? Instead, I approach things in my day with a sort of analytical lens. When I was younger, if I wanted to write about something, I thought I had to explain every aspect of it and everybody that was perhaps involved in the situation and provide all of the context. But the issue with that was, to me, I don't enjoy that and it's a bit of a job, so it was getting in the way of my writing, and sometimes I just wouldn't end up writing at all because I thought I had to begin by recapping everything. So now I just jump right in because no one else has to know what I mean. I just have to know what I mean, and most of the time I can figure out what I was talking about later on. Yeah, that was a big change in the way that I journaled that I think really helped me get more into it, was just understanding that I didn't have to set things up in the right order. I could just write whatever was in my mind and whatever I was feeling, and it took away that friction to getting started. So journaling now has become a place for me to first and foremost express my emotions and how I'm feeling. If I'm having trouble with something, I'm not very likely to go and talk to somebody else about it. I prefer to write about it with myself and go through it and work through everything. I might go and talk to someone about it after I've done this, but I like to sort of get everything organized in my mind and know what I'm saying and know for sure what the problem is, or if there even is a problem in the first place. And most of the time I've found it really helpful to just talk things through with myself and work out what's really going on. There's definitely judgment that comes up when I'm writing about how I'm feeling. Sometimes I'm worried it's really cringy, or I'm being selfish. I feel stupid sometimes, just all of the negative emotions that you can think of. But over the years I've really worked on not silencing that judgment, but just acknowledging it and understanding that it's redundant. I'm quite proud of how I've developed maybe not a confidence in my writing, but more of like just a safety net with myself, because it's just me in the journal, so I can come and write about what I need to write about. It's my place where I don't have to filter anything or pretend, and I can just let everything out that I need to let out. I think this is a really good outlet for me because I'm able to respond to issues that I have in a really mature way, but I can also give myself an outlet for all of my emotions. So I'm not shutting anything off, I'm still letting myself feel everything, but afterwards I'm able to come at it more objectively and look back at it and work out what's going on and then respond. And I think that saved me in a lot of situations. When I first started journaling, I thought that I would just be recapping my day, but I found as I've gotten older, I really need that retrospective look on things. It's really useful for me to pick things apart and analyze them and work things through, and that's been really a good tool for me. I think journaling is also really good for changing your mindset. When I'm not feeling good, I go to my journal and I just vent, and I give myself a page limit, and then after that page limit I have to be positive about it even if I don't want to be, and I start to think, okay, that's bad, but what's some other side of the situation? And then I start looking at what's the next step, what's the most helpful thing that I can do moving forward. For example, if I'm really sad and just unable to get myself out of that headspace, I'll let myself vent about it, and then I'll say, okay, what do I need to do? I probably need to drink some water, and I should probably just play Sims and not think about it for a little while, and maybe I'll feel better afterwards. And I often do. And I think there have been so many times where I've been really down, where I've just been able to go to my journal and literally just flip it and like brute force myself into feeling positive, which doesn't work all of the time, admittedly, but yeah, I should do it more often. I also use my journal as sort of like a scrap bit of paper. It's where all my lists go, shopping lists, orders at restaurants. I think this would have bothered me when I first started journaling because it's not really in alignment with this neat version of journaling that I'd seen online, but I do actually really like it now. I think it's fascinating looking back over my journals and seeing all the different things that I was doing in there. I also really like to use my journal as almost a scrap bit of paper, so I'll use it for shopping lists, or if I'm at a restaurant and I need to write down the order, I'll write it down there. I write lists, maybe I'll have a whole day of planning page that I can't fit in my bullet journal. Just anything and everything, I like putting it in my journal, and I think it's a really good way of capturing the conundrum that is my brain, and it's been really interesting to look back on all the random stuff that I have in there. Sometimes I set up my pages with things to write around, so I might draw some pretty things on the borders, or I'll collect things from throughout my time and stick them in for me to write around. My absolute favourite thing is letting my friends and family just draw on the blank pages of my journal for me to write around later. I think that's really cute. I don't index my journals. I sometimes try to, like I'll start a new journal and be like, this is the one that I'm going to index, and it never works. I don't know why. I think when I'm done with the journal, I'm done with it. I don't want to look at it for like 4 years. I just want to put it on the shelf and not think about it. I have had a system in the past where I've color-coded sections of my journal entries, stuff like, oh, this is the color for school memories, or like memories with my partner and stuff, and that has been really good because I'm able to go through and find things visually. But for the most part, I just try and keep it simple because, again, I don't want to add anything unnecessary or give myself a reason to turn journaling into a chore. So I do try and keep it simple, which is what I'm doing at the moment. Right now I don't really have a specific journal routine. I've really struggled recently to get the idea of morning pages out of my head. The concept of morning pages from The Artist's Way, I feel, is quite a staple in the journaling community. I think it really revolutionized it, don't get me wrong, and I did do it for a long time, and they're really, really beneficial. But for the most part, I think trying to stick with them for the sake of sticking with them, there's a tongue twister, trying to stick with them for the sake of sticking with them, if it's not working for you, then it doesn't matter. I've tried for a very long time to journal at the same time, the same amount every day, and it just doesn't happen, and then I just end up feeling bad about myself. So recently I've tried to let that expectation go, and I've just let myself write whenever I want to write. And sometimes that does look like in the morning, sometimes it's in the evening, but most of the time it's just when I need to. And I still would like to journal every day, but it just doesn't happen. In my ideal world, I would journal every day, but maybe this is just another ideal in my head that I need to get rid of, because again, I'm just finding another reason to be disappointed in myself when that's not what this is about. So yeah, that's just about everything that I have to say about journaling at the moment. I don't think I missed anything. I try and keep it quite simple, but quite fun. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or anything you'd like me to elaborate on, please leave them down below. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.